Call in. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
It's John Frank again from Mississippi.
John Frank, what's on your mind, man?
Hey, I was just calling to comment on the debate. The first thing that I did like, and he probably could have done better, but I think he did pretty good, was that he shut down this notion of he wants to dismantle the ACA,
right? And
just like we have to destroy ACA first before we can create single payer.
Exactly.
Type deal. Which is, I don't think people were really buying it too much. I mean, I don't think the polls
was bearing that out.
Reflected that, but I think it within the Democratic Party that might still, hold people, like afraid of change type, afraid to pursue the bold plans.
I think it's a cop out.
I think
it's used as an excuse for people who want a reason to oppose single payer because they think single payer is actually a good idea, but they don't want Bernie Sanders to have a good idea that Hillary Clinton can't support. And so they put up the straw man of him tearing down the Affordable Care Act in order to replace it, when nothing will be torn down until we have fully replaced it. Right. So go ahead.
Right. But I was very disappointed in the foreign policy aspect of this debate. For the first time, I'm really kind of thinking about the question I thought was a good question. And when you're talking about being president, this is something that Bernie Sanders needs to address, because it's concerning for me.
What specifically?
What's his foreign policy? Who does he turn to? Where does he get his guidance from when making these kinds of decisions? That needs to be pretty clear. And maybe that's not so popular or a big enough issue in this cycle, but it is important, and it's very important to me because that's something that can come back on you.
You know what? I mean, in terms of, I think the only thing he isn't expressly clear on are who are his advisors. But then you think of the flip side of the coin, Hillary Clinton's advisors. There's an article that came out this week that shows Hillary Clinton's advisors come from the same the same agency that provides consultation to Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. Right. So just because we know who Hillary Clinton's advisors are, doesn't mean that it's something that's going to be in our benefit. But I get what you're saying. If we want to know where his advisors are. But the core message is that we are not going with American adventurism. We are not going gallivanting across the world to be the world police. And that in itself is a very strong foreign policy. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, who in the current foreign policy world and framework is going to want that type of foreign policy? So who could he go to and say, this is my guiding principle of foreign policy, and I want you to advise me accordingly, and I want you to give me advice on how we make this happen? Our entire foreign policy framework is built around war. And anybody who's going to be a quote unquote advisor, anyone with experience over the last 30 years in the foreign policy realm, they are geared towards war. So I think one of the problems is probably that he can't find advisors that are going to implement that type of idea. But to your point, I think it's a fair point. He should quickly come out with his advisors. I think that's something that that if it's something that's going to give people a hang up, then it's something that he needs to address very quickly and just get it settled.
I think, and for me, the problem is, it comes across as yes, Clinton, she's going down the same, she's Chris Christie light on foreign policy. But ultimately people are going to turn this at what's your alternative? And it can't be that when you're running for president, when you say you want to be the commander in chief, you want to be the guy coming up with solutions, you can't say, well, I only need to look at the history, or the entire world's against me.
No, I actually, I'm going to disagree with you there, because his position is actually a very strong position. His position is, and he actually laid it out quite well. I think the only thing in terms of what you're asking that I would agree with is, and thanks for the call, John. I got to grab the next one. The thing that I agree with you on, though, is if people and voters feel squeamish about him not having publicly publicized his advisors, if that's something where people can get nervous on, about, then fine. Let's tell everybody who your advisors are. Let's just get that out in the open air. Let's get that settled. Because I think, on the other hand, that his policy is very clear. His policy is very, very clear that in terms of ISIS, we must support and give training to and give equipment to Muslim fighters. Because as King Abdullah said, that this is a fight for the heart and soul of Islam. He's very clear on the fact that if we put American boots on the ground there, that we're going to exacerbate the problem, because that's exactly what they want, is a war between them and the West and the rest. That's what ISIS wants. So he's very clear on that. He's very clear on being sober about our decisions and being clear-headed on our decisions, whether or not we are going to look at the data and just accept what, for instance, George W. Bush gave us. Or do we have the responsibility, do we have the wherewithal, rather, to actually make a decision outside of what's popular? And unfortunately, it was the momentum of the United States in 2002 to go to war with Iraq in 2003. And because of that momentum, or for whatever reason, Hillary Clinton voted for it. That it's a very clear policy to me. If it makes people feel better for him to have stated, here are my 21 advisors, I don't disagree with you one bit. I think that would be good. I think that's something let's just get it over with. Get your advisors, make your policy statement very, very supported, because to me, it's already very clear. Caller 718, you're live on the air. What's your name?